What's up, guys? So what I've got for you today, it's going to be something a bit different. So what I've been doing, I know that I said my crypto course would be ready about Halloween, and what really happened was it is actually been ready. It's been ready then, but the prices moved up from a lot of my entry points, especially the highest entry point that I'd put down for a lot of the projects that I listed, the buy prices and things like that I was buying into. And as part of the course, that's included. In the Mastermind, it will be more fluid. The course itself is going to be a little bit rigid in that the crypto moves very fast. I've said that before. You know, as you've seen in the last month, probably the last 2 months, the prices moved considerably to the upside. So what that means for me is I have to do more risk analysis and assessments and studies and more work because I have to get the new price points and understand the valuations as they are. And yeah, I have to do the assessments again for guys. So that's completed now. And I have the new entry points, the highest ones, and of course there will be ladders of buys for the portfolio. And part of what's been a good thing is seeing the market move over the last month. You get an idea of the projects that are going to be successful into the next cycle. It's like getting a small glimpse in time. And now with the ETF and things like that, I told you guys that we would get an ETF. And I never said that we would get an ETF this time around. I never said that it would happen in a month. I never said that it would happen in a week or a day. But I said that BlackRock have a 98% history of getting ETFs through, that they will get this one through as well, the spot ETF for Bitcoin. It might take until March. You know, it could be sooner, but that's just what I had expected. You know, that there can be delays. It's not a quick process. And it would make sense for it to delay, I guess, for a period, maybe even until March, because that's when the halving is due for Bitcoin. You know, nothing is accidental. It's all programmed. You know, it's all by design, especially with the funders at this sort of a stage. They control the media. They control large parts of the infrastructure. So they set the narratives and they set what happens. You know, I'm sure that they have their own price points for Bitcoin and things like that. And I have another gem for you guys. From my research and talk on the ground, I talk to a lot of highly level fund guys, exchanges, guys that have been in crypto since the very beginning, guys that are building out the tech. And there'll be Bitcoin mining ETFs. There'll be baskets of that coming out next year. So much like I said, I always said, how would companies like BlackRock or the US or entities like that, I guess Vanguard, things like that, how will they control the mining? Like, how will they be able to censor transactions, censor countries? How will they be able to essentially control large parts of the network? And that is how they'll be able to do it through mining ETFs. Through the ETFs, they'll own large parts of the miners because they're publicly traded companies. And then they'll be able to sit on the board or leverage the board to move in the directions that they want, which will be sustainable mining, which will actually make Bitcoin harder to mine. It'll make it more expensive. That's how they get you on the ESG or the ECG ratings or whatever they are, which is just basically companies that are compliant and companies that aren't. They have ratings, and that determines if they're investor worthy or not. That determines if they'll use client capital to invest in that company or not. So that's how they leverage companies to do their bidding, like do whatever the fuck they want. And that's ultimately how they'll be able to censor transactions. I'm sure they'll be able to do it at stages as well. Because when they own large parts of the coins, or they will control large parts of the coins, through the ETFs, they'll have the rights to vote based on those coins. So when forks and things happen, they'll eventually own a considerable amount of the supply. So they'll be able to vote on forks and things like that will eventually be able to move the network into whatever direction that they want. I said that there'll be backlash from a lot of the influencers and a lot of the smaller projects and things like that because they have to go out kicking and screaming. Like they've had a throttle hold on the chain, or they've also had a throttle hold on the fees, and they've been monetizing it, and influencers have been doing pump and dumps and things like that. And that was going to get squashed out this cycle. I saw a post from I think it was the New York, I don't know, the financial regulator or whatever, that they're going to order more stringent terms for listing of tokens and also delistings, which means that they'll have a larger say in what tokens get listed and what don't on the bigger exchanges. I would assume anything mid-exchange down will be squashed out of the game eventually. The DEXs and things like that will go. I think that they'll get one more cycle. But ultimately, you know, the ETFs and the blue chip basket of ETF for altcoins, which I've predicted, will be a thing that gets most of the capital. And they'll be compliant projects. They'll be essentially projects that have been picked to succeed. They'll just get, maybe it'll be an ETF basket with 6 of the top 10 or something like that in it. And you'll buy the basket and then it'll just allocate certain percentage to each project based on the weighting, like they do with real ETFs. So a lot of the projects outside of that will be starved of capital and interest, and they won't be there'll be more risk to going in there because there'll be a lot of projects and things like that getting delisted in the future. So you have to get it right this cycle. I've said it before. It's going to be a very different cycle. It's not a cycle that you can navigate without VC experience, which is what I have. That's how I've predicted the market since, I don't know, when I come online talking my predictions in June. I've predicted it like a fiddle. I haven't just predicted it like a lot of the others where they look at old data and say it can go up and down, or they do TA or some crap like that, like basically read tea leaves or astrology. Like that's not really a thing. Actual astrology is actually better at predicting market cycles than TA. That's stuff that happens at the very high level. So it's not something that I can get into on here because it's quite confidential. It'll upset a lot of people if I talk about that. But yeah, so you have to get this cycle right. Like you have to figure out how to make it this cycle. That's why my product is going live. I have my crypto product and I'm also going to bring out my group as well. So the crypto product itself, it's only crypto. It's many videos that you watch and it teaches you how to allocate a portfolio. It doesn't teach you how to make a wallet. You have to figure that out yourself. Like I'm not going to give you the absolute basic stuff like buy a ledger and how to do a video of how to set up a ledger. There's so many of those on YouTube. I will tell you that I believe if you have more than maybe $1,000 in crypto, that you should have a ledger and you should have the seed. You should only buy it from the ledger store, which is the Sony store online. There's some that you can go face to face as well, only authorized dealers. And you have to generate your own seed code. It shouldn't come with any sort of slip of paper that has a seed code in it. You have to generate it with the wallet. You have to write it down. You have to keep it safe. You have to keep it in a place no one can see. And then you have to put a pin on the wallet. And then you have the wallet somewhere safe. And if you get the ledger S, Nano S or whatever, sometimes the buttons do break. That's happened to me a few times where you can't use it. Like one of the buttons is broken and you can't put the pin in. It doesn't work. But then I've got the newest one, I think it's the X, and I haven't had any issues with those, but they do cost more money. But it's definitely a good investment because if you're keeping it on an exchange or something like that, you can lose everything. A lot of guys get SIM swapped and things like that. That's a risk. So yeah, I've taught you just enough to that you do need a hardware wallet if you have over $1,000, in my view, that you need two-factor authentication on all your exchange accounts, including your email, including all of that stuff. You have to get used to doing it. And two-factor that goes to your phone, like your phone number, that can be a problem. Two-factor that's better. Two-factor that goes to a secondary phone. I have 6 phones here now. And the reason why I have so many phones, there's lots of reasons, but it's a security thing. It's easier to just have one phone for one job. But that's me. OPSEC's a massive thing to me. But yeah, so building off what I was saying, the crypto course is ready. It's going live. The reason why it was delayed is only because I'm a perfectionist. I'm not someone who, like I said from the start, I want you to make money. I know that I've had probably 50 guys or more DM me if they can buy the course in the last few weeks. I know that I could have launched it and already made a few $100K, but I don't want the money. It's not as valuable to me as actually people succeeding. I'd rather people make money and it's a good course and it's the best course out there. That matters to me more. And with crypto, I've said it before and I'll say it many times, the market is evolving all the time. So the month ago when I did the course, or even 6 weeks, a lot had changed since then. And it wouldn't be responsible for me to pump it out as it was, because it's the market had changed considerably in that period. So I actually took the time to redo elements of the course and then release it. So it was more time for me instead of releasing a product that I don't believe was as good as I could do. So now this product is as good as I can do, and I think that it's the best product by infinite numbers. I have so many people in my free Telegram that run groups and things like that for crypto. and that's fine. I don't mind that they're in there. I don't mind that they take my calls. I don't mind that they use my intel and break it down and use it for their own groups, because that's part of the game. That's part of being a teacher. You can't control who you teach. You can't say, oh, I'll teach this person, but I won't teach that person. And people are going to monetize your tech. That's fine. But that's part of why I'll run the group, so that I can allocate more of my time into it, because my time is valuable. I know a lot of guys that run groups, that's their whole fucking business. They try to convince you that they run a business, but their whole business is just that they've run a group. It's like a pyramid scheme. You're learning from someone who couldn't get rich on their own. They got rich running a group. If what they had to teach was so valuable, they would have already made it on their own. They wouldn't have just needed a group to get rich. I have my own Lambo. I'm worth $12 million. I've made nearly $1 million in the last 6 weeks. As long as it's taken me to not have launched the course, I made $1 million or close, at least 800K. So it's not like in US, so it's not like I'm starved for cash. The burden of the teacher is much like happens in university and things like that. The best guys don't teach. The most skilled people and the guys who, that's why I respect Ray Dalio and guys like that. You might not like him because he is in the funding and he's deeply in that sort of a thing. He's, in my view, a little bit too much leaning towards China and things like that. But you can't not respect that guy. He's a guy who is rich, he's rich beyond, and powerful beyond measure for a normal person to fathom, even for me to fathom. He's a multi-billionaire. He's managing a lot of money. His time is extremely valuable. People would pay 100K to sit down with him for an hour and talk, but he still pumps out content. I know he doesn't do it all of the time, but he's old as well. He's an old guy, and he still takes the time to pump out content and help people. And I've seen his, perspectives of the macro and the changes that are coming forward and things like that, and I agree with a lot of it. The stuff that he gives out is not actually just crap. A lot of the other guys give information out that is garbage, like Peter Schiff and guys like that. Their information is trash. Yes, he has an idea of the macro, and he understands that the government and things like that are lying and they're manipulating the stats and things like that. But it doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if you say, oh yeah, the inflation numbers are all made up, because they are. But then if you don't profit off that, it's crazy to me. And then guys will sit there and be like, he's so right, but everything he says has been wrong. It doesn't matter if the sky might be blue, and you say the sky's blue, and you see on TV that everyone's saying that the sky is red, and then you go adamantly that the sky is red, and then you're willing to bet that the sky is red and put all of this stuff down, and then you go broke, you lose all of your money, instead of just profiting, understanding that the collective think one thing, and that's where the money is. Guys don't understand. And I had this discussion before. I had a discussion with a guy who said, oh, but you post things every now and then you've posted something about astrology or something like that. Do you believe in that? I believe in anything that people believe in. I believe that there's power there, of course. I don't have to believe it completely. I don't have to think of the star signs and things like that and think that there's a lot of truth to it. But the collective conscious believe that is true. So it's existing in the real world, it's a real thing. If enough people believe it, it's happening. To me, to not take in that data is dumb. That enough people believe it, so there is value there. There's something there. It's happening in real time. It's a real thing. If enough people believe it's true. Crypto, is a lot of the dog coins and things like that worth billions of dollars? No, but the collective buy those sort of tokens because it's easy for them to understand. It's easy for them to digest. Easy wallets. They believe in memes. It's funny. It's fun. They like very cheap tokens, so the concept that they can own 1 million Doge, in their logic, if it goes to the price of Bitcoin, they'll be trillionaires. They don't think like a normal person. They don't think like an educated investor. They just think in terms of memes and funny and speculation, and it's exciting, and I can own a lot of tokens of one project. They don't think of the fastest chain. They don't think of where all the value is going to come from. They're not thinking that far ahead. So I think like that. I know that there's a lot of value there. I know that being in the tokens that retail are going to pump, that's where all of the big liquidity is. That's where all the VCs want to be in. They don't jerk off over which project has the fastest chain and things like that. And who's running the project, it's the most educated person on the planet. That stuff doesn't really matter. It's just the projects that the masses can get behind and understand and palate. It can't be too difficult for them to understand, or they won't back it. It has to be something that's easily like memeable as well, so it's easy to market. Like most of the projects and things like that are marketing. Like it's not about having the best tech, because if they could value the tech, a lot of it is worthless. It's but the speculation and the froth, that's where we make all of our money. It's where we make our 5, 10x, sometimes make 100x. I've been in a few projects that have done very many hundreds of X's, and rode it all the way through. That's why you need someone like me. Like you need me for that sort of stuff, because I've ridden the multiple 100x gains. I know how to ride that sort of a bull and how to stay in the market, because I have a strategy. I know how to ladder buys, I know how to ladder sells, I know when to sell, I understand the 4-year cycle. So yeah, the group is going live, and it's going to be a crypto group, one, which is a crypto course, and you'll have the option to join the group as well, which will be live, and we'll be doing lives as well. I'll still post my free content, which will be still free audio as I feel like it in the group, but the paid group will have like more exclusive stuff and more stuff that I spend a lot more time on. I'll be able to do AMAs and things like that as well. So I'll be putting in a considerable more amount of my time in the paid group, obviously, because you guys have invested in me. So I want to make that investment worthwhile for you. I think that I've said it before, I've sold the concept of investing 1,000,000 times. That investing is how you get wealthy. You have to learn to invest. You have to learn how to outpace inflation. You have to learn how to speculate. Because by my logic, there's going to be a speculative mania bigger than the bug, bigger than the one that happened during the virus in a few years. And that's based off the back of people understanding that the bond market is not a place where they can put money anymore, because it's not going to beat inflation. Even if they lock in at 5% for 20 years, inflation is not going to be below 5% for a considerable amount of time, even on their numbers, over the next 20 years, by my guesses, by my calculations. I think that there's never really been an alternative to the bond market as much, and now there's Bitcoin, the inflation hedge. I think that's a good sell for the ETFs and things like that. I think that Bitcoin itself is going to do extremely well. I think that this run, by my logic, is going to be multiple like segments. It's going to be very different to any run that's happened before it. But yeah, that's why you need an expert. You need someone with funding experience. You don't need one of the talking heads on YouTube. They're not me. They're marketers. They're just guys that repeat crap like Cointelegraph articles. None of that stuff has value. You need someone who is a great mind in that field. And what the other group that I'll be launching will be a general group where we go over a lot of things, because a lot of the stuff that I'll post on Telegram and things like that, especially if it's around dating or women, or I've posted some stuff like sexual topics. I can't really post that in public because you can get cancelled. And even though I know I posted in a private group, I can still get cancelled, but at least I'll be paid for that. Like it puts, when I talk about women or I talk about, sex or things like that, it loses me women. Like obviously some see it and they're like, I don't want to hear him talking about that. So there's a value loss there. And I know that I'm amazing to teach that sort of a thing. The thing with me too, I'm a teacher who started at zero. I'm not a guy running around at 6'6" telling you that like everything's easy, because it probably is. Like if you've got all these genetic advantages, like I'm sure that life's a lot easier. I'm a guy who started out as a fat guy. I'm not short or anything like that. I'm 6 foot, but I was a fat guy. I don't have, a lot more genetic advantages than you would have watching this. I was a computer game player, played Counter-Strike professionally. I played it back when we made essentially no money. Played it from beta 3 up to 1.5. I was very good at it, but there was just no money in it at that point. They had like the World Cyber Games and CPL and things like that, but they didn't have the big sponsors that they had. Certainly not in Australia. To be sponsored meant that we were sponsored by an internet cafe, but the sponsorship was still worth fuck all. You could essentially just play there for free and would get food and things like that, but that was really it. It wasn't something that you made a ton of money doing. Even the best player in the country was probably, just like a wagey worker equivalent in wages. So, yeah, I'm a guy who hasn't had the advantages. I've been through a lot of much of what you guys are going through. I have a very big depth of understanding of so many topics. Like, you guys can listen to my Telegram and my audio and things like that. I'm not a guy who reads off scripts. I'm not a guy who sits down and rehearses what I say. I'm not a guy who gives you Hallmark greeting card responses, because that's crap. Like, that's not true. I understand depth, and that most of the problems and things, especially when they're related to people, exist in the grey. There's no binary robot talk, like you just toughen up or all that sort of crap, because most of that shit doesn't really help you. It's just crap. Like, I've said it before with guys. Just because they don't talk about their feelings or talk about problems or things like that doesn't mean that they don't exist, and it doesn't mean that they go away. In most cases, they just repress it and then have bigger issues later on. You know, I understand men because I've had the 14 months in a veterans hospital. I lived in a veterans hospital for 14 months around a lot of guys with complicated issues relating to everything. To relationships, women, their wives, kids, their mental health, their health in general. I've been around a lot of very dark situations like that. So none of that stuff scares me. Like, none of that stuff worries me when guys come to me with their problems. There's nothing that you could tell me that you've ever done that would shock me. I've seen everything. Like, I've heard everything about people. I know what's in people's, like, actual, like, soul, like their spirit. Not the shit on the outside, the veneer, like the presentation to the world. I can see people and, like, dissect them very quickly. I can have someone in front of me and it's almost like I just completely know what, like, is behind the mask. Like, they have their presentation to the world and I can see how that they can improve themselves beyond that. Like, what anything in their life that's lacking. Guys can attest to that. I've got probably hundreds of testimonials in my DMs and guys that I've helped and guys that I've spoken to. Part of it is stuff that I learnt, you know, from the army hospital. I've been to prison. I've had a life in that sort of a field for a lot of years. I've been through a lot of stuff myself from when I was in the army and times before that. I've had a lot of time to myself when I was a kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. I have a massive network now, a lot of brothers, which I'm grateful for. And yeah, I can teach you all of those steps along the way. You know, everything that I have in life, I earned. There's been no tricks and no traps and no ladders in my life. If we were playing snakes and ladders, I'm a guy who climbed that one tile at a time. There was no take a step and just hit the ladder and go to the top. I only know it from failing, you know, and having a pretty hard life along the way. But I wouldn't take it back for anything because that's why I'm fit to teach. I understand that with groups and things like that, like the group concept, a lot of that stuff is in a massive bubble now. The groups, everyone just wants to run a group and everyone wants to be a paid group leader because it's a nice thing for them because it's monetized. Like, they want to teach you, but they themselves they're not experts at anything. Like, how can someone teach if their whole business is just based around running a group? You know, they want to be the guy who's essentially at the top of the pyramid, but they haven't done the work to be able to teach. Like, what value are they going to have? The group is only good as a network effect. Like, there's only a value in a group if you're actually helping people. Otherwise, the group will just collapse. You know, there's no, like, value, there's no utility. It's not just, can't just be a group where guys meet up and everyone laughs and fucking does bullshit. Like, everyone pats each other on the back and everyone's a fucking cool guy. That's not what this group is about. It's about guys actually getting better in their field and guys dropping the ego and the mask and all the crap that they roll in with and admitting that there's shit that they don't know. And I know. I'm a master in every field. You know, there's no field that we can talk about that I don't have amazing receipts in. You know, it's not a field where I know guys can say, oh, but I meet more women, or I do this, or I do that. There's no guy who has, in my view, on the internet, and my view now, a more optimized life than me. There's no guy who has the free time that I have. There's no guy who has the freedom to roll around the world anytime I want right now. There's no guy who has the freedom with women. There's no guy who has the freedom to express what he feels, like what he wants and his vision and things like that as openly as I do. Because a lot of others, they've either taken money from causes that they can't, so they can't talk completely unbiased. They have other issues. They can't like travel as freely as me or do the stuff that I can do. They don't have the freedom to speak openly. That's the big thing, because yeah, once you've taken money or once you've chosen a side or once you have alliances and things like that in one field, you have to stay on that side, which means you often have to turn a oblivious side to the mistakes that your side make. I don't have that. Like, I don't have that red tape. So in this group, it's going to be about getting better. You know, it's about getting better, and it's going to be about getting better with most of the fundamental things. It's not about getting better tricks and crap. There's no tricks and hocus pocus and fucking magic or any of that trash. And that's just grit, like hard work. And I know that it scares people off because the guys think that it's just fucking meant to be easy. Like life is just gonna change in 1 second because they fucking send me some money, and it's not. Like, you have to do the fucking work. There's no tricks. There was no tricks for me to become the man that I am today. There were no tricks when I was a fat dude sitting in the fucking Trelgan South. That's a town of 200 people. I was fat. I had nothing going on. I had a year 9 education. I'd left school, had no money. My parents were broke. My parents didn't have any money. My dad was sick. So there was no tricks for me. 260 pounds, couldn't even do 2 push-ups. When I had to figure my shit out on my own, had no money, no education. There's no tricks there. My parents don't have money. I present a guy who had started at that point that's now worth $12 million. Traveling the world, doing whatever I want. I got an amazing network of brothers that I'm very thankful for. But that's work. You know, a lot of you guys, and I'm not saying all, because I know some of you are trying, like always trying to get better. And even the guys that this will hit are trying, I know that. But a lot of you guys can't find a brotherhood because you're not a brother. Like, you don't know how to be, because that's not something that you just learn. Like, it's learned. It's not something that you just figure out in one day. It's not something that you just know after being in school. A lot of you guys, like, if you're honest with yourselves, you only had friends in school because, like, you had to be there. It's a convenience thing. So some of you guys missed the school days because, like, you had more friends, but you only had friends because you had to spend time together. It was forced. And now it's not forced. Like, people don't really want to spend time with you because, like, for a lot of you, you don't understand the value exchange. You haven't put yourself in a position where people have to, like, associate with you outside of work. You don't know how to, like, you know, build a network, but also help your community and things like that. And that doesn't mean, you know, when I say things like that, I understand it can hurt people's feelings. But the truth, like, it often does hurt, and reality is often disappointing like that. But that's the way that it goes. Like, you know, it's better to be told the truth. So and I've just cemented it in my head, I had a vision of something that I would do, something that Kevin Samuels did to me. When people join, I'm going to have a thing that I do, and that's going to be more work for me. So this will take more of my time. But I'm going to do a thing, maybe an AMA or a live or something like that, maybe monthly, where people come in, and you have to come in with your cam on, like your webcam on. There's no fucking anon talking garbage. Like, if you anon, that's fine. But don't come in, correct people and talk garbage as an anon. Like, don't come in and act like your shit don't stink if you're anonymous, like if you don't have a photo up. Because if you have to present yourself. To critique another man, you have to present as you are. You can't critique people as an invisible man. Like, that's dumb. You're not going to have an impact on the world if that's the sort of logic that you have. You're going to be pushed around also by the government and everyone. But the group itself will be trying to maintain OPSEC and things like that. But leaks happen. I mean, they happen in other groups. People talk about things that they see or talk about, you know, things that are discussed. There's going to be no discussion of illegal activities or anything like that. There'll be discussion of women and dating and things like that. But there's going to be no discussion of like non-consent stuff or, like, you know, abuse or that sort of bullshit. There's no, like, you know, discussions of, like, putting girls on webcams or any of that shit. There's no prostitution of any kind or any of that crap. Like, that shit is not for this group. I understand when guys do it, like they're not breaking the law. Like girls, it's a business. Like girls can go through agencies and stuff like that. So I'm not saying they're breaking the law, but that's just not what this group is. It's not what I do. I'm not an expert in that field, so it's nothing that will be discussed in my group. And I don't judge the people that do that. But yeah, so the group itself now, I've come to the conclusion that guys that join, I'll be running a group for new members, like a live or something like that. And you put your webcam on and you present, and I'll tell you what's wrong with you. And when I tell you what's wrong with you, understand that it's a fucking guy who is telling you from the top what's wrong with you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're defective or something like that. For some of you, things will be about you that you can't change. You know, there'll be something around your face or something like that that you can't change. We only have what we have, like appearance and stuff like that. I mean, surgeries and shit like that. I don't believe in men getting that sort of crap. Unless you have some massive like issue. Maybe you have a broken nose from boxing and you can't breathe properly, or it's really like, it's just a big problem. Or you have something that you might want to change. But as a rule, I don't believe in that because it's a slippery slope. I've seen a lot of guys and a lot of influencer guys tell people about fitness and stuff like that, and then they go and get vasal liposuction, or they get like, you know, all of this sort of shit on their own body, and they're getting Botox and all this other crap. Like, you know, Botox is one thing, but guys like getting vasal or lipo or like changing their body and their nose and stuff like that. And that's a slippery slope. Like, especially I think for men, it's not really that masculine, like to be that insecure. Like you're that insecure about your appearance. Like that you're trying to change crazy stuff. I can understand people change the small things, but like lipo and stuff like that, like it's very dangerous. And it's also something that you can just get around, like by just working out harder, not being lazy. So as a rule, like all that sort of crap, that's not like stuff that I encourage. I'm not pushing people into those sort of medical fields because that is in itself like risky. You know, I know there's a lot of money in that. That's why a lot of these surgery and things like that, people promote that sort of crap because it's very monetizable, but that's stuff I don't encourage. So again, sticking to the meat and potatoes of the group, the things that are going to be talked about, it's going to be about fitness, it's going to be about women and dating, it's going to be about money, but in the group, the main group, there's no discussions of crypto because there is a crypto group and that's separate. I don't think that it's fair to have a group and then have people pay for the crypto element and then they would get it for free in the main group. So that's the way that it goes. I mean, the crypto group itself, we can also discuss other forms of investing if there's demand for it, and equities and things like that. I don't invest in bonds or crap like that. I don't really believe in it. I think that I don't like to be too involved in any of the debt game in the US or really any country. I think there's a lot of risk there. There's actually monumental risk to that in that sort of market currently or in the future. I think the debt market itself can easily explode in the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, so that's what the groups are going to be about. You know, that's what's going to be building out the numbers and things like that in that. And once the numbers build out, we can do meetups and things like that as well. But for now, we can do a lot of stuff online. You know, a lot of the stuff that, I'm not saying all or really a whole lot, but some of the stuff of like, you know, being able to talk to members and break down members and things like that is stuff that I've learned because I've seen so many different types of people. I've seen so many different types of problems. I've solved a lot of problems with myself, but also had long discussions with Kevin Samuels. You know, he had chats with me where I was on the webcam and so was he. And we had considerably long talks, you know, and he would tell me very directly things that I could do to improve myself. Some of the stuff I've implemented, some of the stuff I'd gone down a very set path in life. I've got the tattoos, I've got the, you know, the history that I have. So for me to change and lean away from that doesn't make sense to me. I am who I am in this life, as are you. But a lot of you go down paths that aren't designed for you. So that's what the group's going to be about. For a lot of you, I think that it'll be a lifeline. Like, you know, a lot of you, it'll be able to change your trajectory of your life. For some of you that are older, it'll be able to give you also peace of mind with where you're at. But still, you can still change your direction. Like, you can still change your future. It doesn't matter how old you are. And that's what the group's going to be about. It's going to be the crypto group, again, going back over it, which is now the course is completed. It's going to be a crypto group that's fluid, so we can talk about prices and projects we're looking at and things like that, and be able to teach you and train you about which part of the cycle we're down, new projects, talk about new tokens. I'll talk about some of the, in the course, a couple of the low cap projects I didn't discuss because the cap's so low that if you buy them, it will manipulate the price to the upside. But they'll be talked about in the crypto group, and they'll be talked about as adequate amount of risk. So when you watch the crypto course, you'll understand risk mitigation and portfolio allocation and things like that I go into. And where it will come into is when you join the group, the mastermind, there is discussion of the very small caps. There's a few of those. But in the group, in the course itself, there's discussion of probably 95% of the projects that I've invested in. And they're my discussions as my investments, allocation, and how I've allocated my portfolio. And there's a snippet of my portfolio in the group as well. Obviously with numbers blurred out, so I'm not completely doxed. But because for some of them I hold considerably large allocations. But in some of these projects, like the higher caps, I have, higher allocations, so I don't want people to know how much money I have in the market, obviously. So yeah, that's the meat and potatoes of it all. I look forward to seeing you guys in that. All right, lads. See you inside.